Marco,
Sean,
can you feel the excitement?
I am. As a
You're
matter of
excited?
fact, you see this for people watching. I already have the little lapel mic. I'm gonna keep it until next week. I'm not gonna remove it. I'm gonna
I think you
sleep
can
on
see
it.
mine on as well.
I'm excited to actually use this every day in London for
I know.
Infosecurity. So the
We're
excitement is getting
We're gonna be
real.
stationary and mobile, all
Yeah.
at the Excel Conference Center in London, there, just outside London, of course.
Yeah.
And like I said, London proper. But anyway, we're going to be at the Excel. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, seeing a lot of friends making new ones. Jon is a new friend. Jon Davies, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on getting a speaking session, part of a panel there at Infosecurity Europe.
Yep, sounds good, guys. Great to meet you. Looking forward to the session. I'm sure with the other panelists, we've got a kind of a great diverse options, and without kind of using the pun "good cop, bad cop," it's really good to have someone from law enforcement there to kind of give their perspective. Someone from the insurance sector, and I guess me as an end customer, an end consumer of potentially targets of kind of these ransomware gangs, ransomware as a service, these individuals. So it's a good mix of folk gonna be there. Hopefully, we're gonna cover some interesting areas, some newer sessions that kind of on regulations that have been pushed out very recently. So it's kind of pertinent timing. There's certain guidance that have come out from UK government bodies. Areas that are now starting to be lobbied, whether we should make ransomware payments illegal and fraudulent, making them mandatory to report. So some really interesting areas, and all without saying the word AI in the topic as well, which is quite cool.
Come on, you just did that.
Well, it's not in the title. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think in all serious nature, though, I think AI does come into this conversation with ransomware. So, a number of years ago, the complexity of kind of getting into this world, it's highly skilled people, in terms of ransomware as a service. You kind of got the business development, the software engineers, the folk looking for vulnerabilities, creating those exploits and crafting them. With AI now, kind of that skills barrier has dropped, right? Really, really, really on the floor, getting kind of these tools to go away and write that, whether it's the phishing email, is kind of that initial access, the initial, all the way through to writing the exploit. Some interesting times, and hopefully we can put pressure on tech vendors and software vendors to help better protect us. But I think ransomware, it's one of these areas where it's not just the technology, it's kind of the process, the people, the culture of the organization. Are you likely to click the link, the button, whatever that is? Do you have plans in play as an organization? Have you practiced those plans? We're all been there in school, college, workplaces where we test the fire drills. We're all marched outside with the fire marshals. We don't really do that with a lot of kind of these procedures that we have. In corporate enterprises, we don't test them fully. One of the things personally for me is kind of understanding the stakeholders involved. To this day, it's massive, kind of from your PR folk, your legal, your privacy, your tech teams, your MSSPs, your third parties, your vendors. There's a magnitude of people involved in incidents and incident management, and it's understanding how all these operate together. You don't normally get the opportunity to kind of test those out. So I'm hoping that we kind of get into that conversation, get some of the audience interacting, asking the questions, putting us on the spot, challenging us, right? Getting us to think outside the box. And I think that's what it's all about. Personally, for me, I kind of enjoy these sessions. It's like cyber therapy. It's kind of like-minded people challenging you in areas maybe you've not thought of, but it's a great session to kind of learn and kind of take those lessons from people in different industries or sectors.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation, because if you think about and nobody's immune to this, and everybody's a target, because nobody's a target, because everybody's a target, nobody's a target. But when you think about some of the smaller organizations that outsource IT or don't have security in-house, and business folks and functional teams set up services, right? And then those services get compromised. It's often them making the decision of what to do in the case of a ransomware incident, right?
Yeah.
There's no, to your point, there's no team to do the the test to do the fire drill there.
And I think that's a really pertinent point, and I think Paul will have something to say from the police. So he's the national from the Welsh Cyber Resilience Centres, representing the national cyber resilience centres. But the purpose of those out in region for SMBs and kind of smaller outfits is going to be key, and it's going to be some good lessons learned and how you get in and interact with those individuals and groups, and bring in that law enforcement element into it. It's key. I think in the UK we kind of use the term action fraud. It doesn't sound like the place you go and report cybercrime, right? And it'll be good to see how that's going to evolve going forward, and what support there are for these small, medium businesses. So yeah, big multinationals, corporates, we have teams of people, skilled to the teeth, vendors to the teeth of capability, but your smaller outfits, typically they don't. You're spot on there. And what advice is out there for free? Who can you call on in such incidents? And pretty much how do you not get your pants pulled down by a vendor and MSP at that point to charge you a fortune? Because it's the worst day of your life when these happen. And some vendors, some service providers are going to try and cash in on that opportunity when, rightly so, there's some free advice out there, some free toolkits that you can refer back to and guidance. And yeah, I'm sure Paul and myself can touch on those in the session, and where to turn to, where to ask for that help and advice.
Yeah, the exorbitant service provider fee might be way less than the ransom payment. so we have some great excitement here already. We're, I don't know how long, maybe over 6 minutes into the conversation. We don't even know who we're hearing from here. I mean, Marco and I do, of course, but for our audience, they don't know who Jon Davies is and why we're chatting with you. So I want to give you a moment, Jon, to kind of let us know who you are, what you're up to, some of the experiences you've had. We're talking about Infosecurity Europe here, and a panel you're doing on ransomware with some folks. So let everybody know who Jon Davies is.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, I've gone 100 miles per hour straight into it without doing the intro. But yeah, so yeah, Jon Davies. I'm currently a senior director at NewsCorp. So the big old beast. So Mr. Murdoch and Murdoch Jr. now is Empire. I look after cyber defense in the EMEA time zone. So that's everything from incident response to some of the engineering side, from our detection response engineering. We have some of the forensics capability here in the EMEA region. That's the role today. I also sit on the board of directors for CSEC, which is the Chartered Institute of Information Security. Again, really great profession, and anyone in cybersecurity, it's the body where you typically go to get your professional recognition. And right now, yeah, we've kind of got the new badge in the UK. I'm not really a fan of badge collecting, but this is a really important one. So it's the Chartered Security Professional. So cybersecurity information assurance it's been around for donkey's years. It's nothing new. We've kind of changed the terms, but we're going down maybe the engineering route, where in the US you kind of got professional engineer status. UK we've got chartered engineer status. It's maturing the profession and having a place for security people to kind of go register. Prior to this, I was Microsoft Chief Security Advisor for the partner ecosystem within the UK, so I pretty much know all the UK MSSPs that there are. Have some great relationships with those guys and girls, and prior to that, significant experience across UK government, civil service departments, and MOD. So that's kind of where I crafted my skill set. Great opportunity to get exposed across the piece of different cybersecurity pillars. But yeah, for me, systems engineering is where I kind of cut my teeth into it. That's kind of where the road started for me. Interesting background. So started, I guess, all through the academic path. Even became a qualified welding inspector, believe it or not, along the way, before jumping back to more electrical and electronic engineering.
Nice.
Cool.
Welding.
All right, I'm gonna bring it into the big question, because you mentioned you're gonna play probably good cop, bad cop on the panel, and I'm thinking and then you say things like there's never been a better time to talk about ransomware, which sounds a little weird, because it's like, do we really need to talk about it? But we do, right? And my question is, from a societal perspective, it's something that ransomware or something similar existed before the internet, right? So we know it's not something that you can just patch with some technology, which I think we figured out the entire cybersecurity industry is not something you patch with some technology anyway. So I'm curious to know from your perspective the regulation that is happening maybe in the European community nowadays, but also the option, what you said, when it's a corporate environment where you have a multinational, there may be a lot of loops to go over. So the question here is, do you pay or you won't pay? So I want to know, where do we stand really here?
Yeah, no, certainly. So I guess it kind of comes down to it's a business decision right now. So there's no, in the UK, certainly there's no kind of rules and regulations and laws against it. A side pillar of that is if someone's on the financial sanctions list within the UK, or the group's on the sanctions list, then different ball game. You'd certainly need to bring your legal people into that. But from corporate individuals, from kind of your tech providers, cloud providers, hyperscalers, where you look at that shared service model, the data is your own. It's your data as a company. It's your responsibility. So it's a business decision to kind of do that. There's an ethical stance to it. Should we be kind of aiding and abetting organized criminal gang, nation states? Whether that's true or not depends on which side of the fence you sit on, and certainly a great discussion point. If it's a crown jewel, so some organizations, if they've kind of gone through that maturity, understand what a minimal viable company is, what makes money for your organizations, and all of a sudden you're being extorted, a double dip, a triple dip. So where before the data was just being sold, now data's being sold, it's encrypted, then you may kind of have your public perception, your customers being targeted as well, or you kind of your external footprint being targeted. There's a lot at stake for organizations, especially the multinationals, where PR is huge, and how you deal with that. So in terms of regulation, NCSC has recently put out some stuff that we're going to cover. The UK government is starting to lobby and kind of go out to kind of the general public to say, if you can undergo ransomware, is it a kind of regulatory or mandatory regulatory response? You have to report that to a body. Right now, which body that is, it's unknown. Who's going to be capable of dealing with that on the sheer scale of it? You kind of have to look at the victim side of it. So behind all of this, especially for the smaller organizations, there are victims, right? And unfortunately, individuals and companies have gone bust, and then there's a human element to it. Some people have committed suicide, right? When things have gone, so there's that serious nature of it. So how do we kind of protect individuals? How do we protect companies? And then it kind of goes back to it, even if you pay that ransomware, there's no guarantee you're going to get your data back, that no one's going to be, it's not going to be released out into the wild per se. And it doesn't alleviate your responsibility to report that to the ICO if it's kind of PPI and GDPR type information there. So low pay-in, maybe kind of the low-hanging fruit, the kind of the easy option. Sometimes it's not the best option, and I'm sure Paul will kind of cover that being not the best option. But then, on the flip side of all of that, you could get your company back up and running. You could get access to your data, but you are, facilitating, if you want, and funding, the ongoing nature of ransomware as a service, organized criminal gangs, nation state. I think we're up to $1 billion so far for ransomware payments. So it's huge, absolutely huge money. And I think this year alone, we're already tracking significant spend and significant uptick in ransomware. The top 10 ransomware gangs, if you want, they're still the same ones. They, NCA, the National Crime Agency, has taken down certain threat actors, but they'll pivot, right? They'll rebrand, they'll rechange their tools or the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, procedures, and they'll come again because they're financially incentivized to do this. There's so much money in there. It's like a small business. It's not even a small business, right? $1 billion is huge money. So how do we globally combat this? We've touched on technology not being kind of the golden bullet, if you want, or the smoking gun. And the reason is there's so many bloody vulnerabilities, right? There's so much vulnerabilities out there that your external attack footprint is huge for an organization. That initial point, and it goes back to the unfortunate, saying that an attacker only has to be successful once, defender has to be successful, 24/7, 365 days of the year. You're only giving them that one initial footprint, that leverage to get into an organization, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
So I want to ask you about this because it's coming to mind here. The idea that, well, especially for publicly traded companies, where they have fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders, and then critical infrastructure, and then, I mean, you talk about victims. Somebody loses a bank account, maybe there's a way to kind of get the money back. But when you start looking at healthcare and critical infrastructure, people be without power, be without health services, what have you. And if I'm responsible for critical infrastructure staying up and running, for people's health to be maintained, I have a responsibility to folks to keep things up and running. And if that means paying the ransom, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is that something you have to think about? I mean, as an
I think so.
I would say would kind of include you in critical infrastructure, bringing information to the public.
CNI is an interesting area, and whenever I get into CNI, it's kind of the other side of this is the safety element. So if you kind of get a really malicious threat actor, these things connect to the connected world. They can make decisions if you want, your PLCs, your SCADA systems. Although you could kill someone, right? So there is a further risk, inside this extortion net. But with CNI, so the kind of the new lobbying is that for CNI, you shall not make any ransomware payment. That's where we're going to go down this, and it's going to be up for public discussion. It's an interesting one because I'm sure if a CNI service goes off for a long enough period of time and no one's paying the ransom, and something's happened, what's going to happen then? Our MPs' heads going to start turning, and people being pushed out of Parliament based on certain decisions that are being made now today that we're discussing, and we're getting right into election period, right? So it's going to be interesting time. Not that we're going to be talking on disinformation here, but it's kind of that all of that extortion side. It's kind of from an attacker's perspective, they've got a tool set, right? And they're going to start pulling those levers to see which makes those individuals tweak inside that organization to see what they're going to get a response from. Not so long ago, me and Paul ran a ransomware tabletop activity. We brought in a hostage and kidnap negotiator to that with a bunch of CISOs in the UK. That was super cool. It's the first time I've ever seen that being done before, and it's that human element. How would you negotiate with someone on the other side of the phone, on the email? Is there anything we can learn from negotiation tactics that we maybe lower the price down, get into the head of the individuals, because they're humans at the end of the day. And the one thing that we need to understand is they're business people, they're businessmen or women at the end of the phone or the email. They're looking for the best deal that they can get. So bringing in someone with negotiation skills to kind of this area, I think is pertinent, and it brings a different skill set that typically cybersecurity folk don't have. We're not used to negotiating with organized criminal gangs or nation states. And one thing I took away from that session is you want to be the dumbest person in the room. You don't want to say you've kind of got all your cybersecurity team there with you. And it's an interesting mindset, because all of a sudden, if the attacker knows you've kind of got technical people working it, they may not want to leverage any opportunity to lower that price. So I thought that was pretty cool. But going back to kind of the CNI element, I'm not sure where I sit on what side of the argument. I see it from not paying, but if I'm not getting paid, or if my pension's not coming in, or kind of your social services, your social security payments are not making it in, or your NHS services are not working because we've decided as a country we're not going to pay ransomware for CNI. So it's an interesting stance to take. Will it force individuals and organized criminal gangs and ransomware gangs not to target you? I'm not too sure. It's certainly something I'd love to participate in that kind of conversation, to see both sides of the argument. And unfortunately, there's no safe area we can test this in, right? If we say we're not paying for CNI. So some insurance companies, in some of the policies for the fallout from war, they won't cover that. So what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now, if a ransomware or an offshoot of that targets your sector where your insurance is, some of the policies won't cover you for that, because hybrid warfare now is using cyber, as part of that with Kinetic, the fallout, the unintended targets of that could reach back or be weaponized by these organized criminal gangs and ransomware gangs to target further into organizations. So I'm not sure. What do you guys think from CNI? What would you do if your services were down? Because at the end of the day, we're the end consumer of these CNI services. If your bills weren't being paid or your electricity went off, what would your thoughts be? Would you want someone to pay?
Well, as we go over this, I'm thinking like you can't just have one bullet for everything, because we mentioned many exceptions where it will make sense to protect the user, but also I can think about small business, as you mentioned, versus big corporation, where it could be the cost of doing business versus the small business that is out of the, it's out of the game, and maybe, even thinking about losing their life because there is no more future. So, I mean, I cannot see this being one piece of legislation that says, nope, we're not going to do it. It's not feasible. That's my thought.
I also think you can't force a direction without an answer to the problem being solved in another way. And I think if the regulation or the laws say this is the position, then there should be some investment and maybe some timeline to say these types of organizations have to become this level, have this level of posture with this plan for response and resilience and recovery. And as you move across different sectors and what have you, maybe there's different levels and different investments and some time to reach that. And some that to me, that's a requirement. The requirement is to reach a level of security and recovery that's acceptable, so that we can avoid the payment.
I think that's a kind of a great call out, because ransomware, we're talking about a specific area, but we're not touching on vulnerabilities and vulnerability management of organizations. So without investment to kind of patch what's already broken, then you're already leaving the door half ajar for an attacker to come in. Yes, they may not target you with ransomware straight away, but all of a sudden an access broker may sell kind of access into your organization to someone who will target you. So it's it's a slippery slope. We're not in a great place. Even over the last 5-10 years, things haven't improved. If you look at the graphs from the ICO in terms of ransomware, it's going up. It's going up and up and up in terms of the payments, the number of ransomware. So we need a step change, whether that is technology, whether it's investment, whether it's regulation. But I think it's a combined effort. We need to kind of bring this together to try and head it off. How we do that, I'm not sure. I think that it needs a lot of smart people to think together in a room and kind of come up with a solution and test it. But right now, in terms of what we can do in terms of organizations, small organizations, is have a plan in play, to understand not if this is going to happen, but when it's going to happen, and have a playbook to know who to call, who in your organization is the right person. If you've got suppliers and third parties, police, which number do you call? How do you report this? Because again, today, I don't think there's an easy place for individuals or organizations, small, medium, big, to go and report, cybercrime, ransomware. There's a bunch of different government pages. You could have got the action fraud. You've got the ICO. It takes a bloody massive coordinated effort just to go and find out who you report it to. Time you report it to your own legal people to understand, is this a reportable incident, a data breach that we need to report? Once they decide that, you're so far down the journey that you can have, we need a simple one-stop page for people to go to kind of get all that information and not be bombarded by 101 vendors saying they're going to protect you from ransomware by buying their product, because unfortunately there is no smoking gun right now for that.
And unfortunately, you go back to the big company will have the people that they can call, and the small company would not. And as we were talking and we're wrapping here, Sean, it come to mind the conversation with our friend Mikko Hipponen, where I made the joke about randomware instead of ransomware, because it was talking on how, especially now with AI, everybody can just have massive probability to get hit anyway. So it's just a matter of when, and it's not the same. It's not the same for everyone. Well, I think it's going to be a great session. I'm going to do my best to be part of it, at least watching, not on the panel, be part in terms of watching and see what you guys come up with.
Well, John mentioned need to bring a few smart people together in a room to have this conversation. That's exactly what.
That's not me. I'll come, but that's not me.
I'll pretend.
I'll be the dumb guy in the room.
I'll be the dumb one asking stupid questions. That hopefully maybe something happens from it. But
never any stupid questions.
You're joined by Paul Peters, Gareth Bateman, and then James Coker from Infosecurity Magazine is moderating the conversation. It's called Ransomware: Time to Decide Will You or Won't You Pay, and perhaps with an added bonus of Can You Pay coming soon. And so that chat is on Thursday the 6th at 10:55 local time there on the keynote stage. You got yourself a nice spot on the keynote there, John. And I'm looking forward to it and the whole week at Infosecurity Europe in London at the Excel. So thanks, John, for joining us. Marco, I'll see you there in a few days. And everybody listening and watching, thanks for staying tuned to ITSP Magazine for all of our coverage. Infosecurity Europe, and there's more coming to you, a few more beforehand, and a lot from the show floor and outside. Maybe Big Ben. I don't know. We're going to see the Eiffel Tower there in London.
Yeah, that too.
That might
the
be
Pisa Tower too.
That might be misinformation. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, it's easy to put it in a picture.
There we go. That's right.
All right, John. We'll see you. We'll see you soon on the floor.
Cheers, guys. Looking forward to it.
See you, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.